Welcome into the Steelers Talk Live show. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Thank you to all the real ones that are tuning in at the beginning of today's live program. We got a bunch of great Steelers news and rumors to discuss to kick off your weekend here. Starting off with a very interesting kind of segment to start today's show, where, of course, yesterday Aaron Rodgers went on the Pat McAfee show, and a lot of people were expecting a decision to come from that show. Turns out that didn't happen. He cleared up a lot of different stuff, but the one thing we didn't get was an official decision as to what he's going to do during the 2025 NFL season. Is he going to sign with the Steelers? Is he going to retire? What is he going to do? We didn't get a clear answer of that yesterday, and he alluded for the reason why that he has not signed is because he's dealing with some personal life stuff. It seems like we kind of know what that personal life stuff is, and it seems like a lot of people, don't really know. So I'm going to let you guys know what that personal stuff is and why it's actually pretty understandable why he hasn't signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers just yet. Then we'll get into my updated list of Steelers draft needs, of course, free agency and all the different stuff that is come and gone here. I want to give an updated list of the positions that the Steelers need to address in the NFL draft this year. Then I have my latest and final 7-round Steelers mock draft before my final mock draft the day before the NFL draft next week. So 8.0, we are finally here at the final kind of mock draft here for the Pittsburgh Steelers before the NFL draft. So it's going to be a great show here, guys. So let me know down there in the comments section. We'll bring on our producer, Jack Lauderay, here in just a moment. Coop is doing our Mavs watch party today, so he's in a bit later. But let me know down there in the comments section to kick off today's show. Will Aaron Rodgers be a Steeler in 2025? Everyone say hello to Jack. Jack, thanks for stepping in today. You're wearing your stupid Boston Red Sox hat, but you know what? You didn't know you were going to be on today's show before you came into the office, so thanks for stepping in today.
Look, we live in a world where things happen, and you got to step up, and that's what I did. I'm happy to be here to talk even more Aaron Rodgers.
Even more Aaron Rodgers. So you were not on the stream yesterday when Coop and I watched the entire interview, and then I went home and I actually watched it back again. And my takeaway is, he really does want to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He would love to play for them if he wants to play. The question is, does he want to play? He's not really debating between any more teams. He's not waiting for Minnesota or San Francisco or New Orleans. It sounds like he hasn't even talked with New Orleans. Sounds like the Pittsburgh Steelers are the team, and right now he just has to make a final decision as to whether or not he wants to play in 2025. I think he's very much leaning towards playing, but as he alluded to, he's got some personal stuff he's got to take care of before he wants to sign on the dotted line.
Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to at this point, and that's basically what he said. He said, got personal stuff, not going to talk about it, nobody knows about it, I'm not going to get into it, but that's why I haven't signed yet. And he was highly complimentary of the Steelers. I mean, that's the team they talked about the most. Obviously, McAfee's a Yinzer, so that makes sense that they're going to ask those questions.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, at this point, it's just a waiting game. I would assume that Pittsburgh knows more than we do.
Yes.
I know a lot of people are like, oh, he's leaving them out to dry. The draft's next week, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, it sounds he said, sorry to cut you off, but he said he's communicating with Mike Tomlin all the time. So, Tomlin knows what's going on, whatever the personal issues that he's dealing with. And by the way, I'm going to share with you guys what the personal issues probably are. And, I think because it's Aaron Rodgers and, he's kind of aloof and, he's doing all these different things. When he says personal issues, I think people kind of blow it off as, oh, that's just your excuse. You don't really have anything serious or pressing in your life right now.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I feel like he was sincere when he was saying that.
No, I agree.
I could tell.
But you can tell a lot of the people that have been reacting to the interview in the media today, they don't buy it. Because they're talking about how, he's leaving them out to dry. Oh, he doesn't want to go to the Steelers, even though he gushed about Mike Tomlin and DK Metcalf and Arthur Smith and the Steelers facility and the Steelers organization. He's always been very complimentary of the Steelers, by the way. People just kind of ignore the reason why he hasn't made the decision, and the only thing that they're focusing on is that he didn't make the decision yesterday on the show. So I'm going to be breaking that down in our first segment today. We don't have to talk about it too much here, but you guys can get on the show today if you want to give your take on the Rodgers interview, if you have something that you want to say about Shadur Sanders and some of the things that we're hearing about him. If you guys want to, put in your take about whatever you want on the Pittsburgh Steelers today, you guys can donate to the show. We'll put you up on screen, and we'll talk about whatever Steelers topic that you want us to talk about on today's show. There's a lot of different rumors going around. I put out a tweet earlier today where 4 different NFL insiders claim to have a source saying that they know which quarterback the Steelers are going to take in round 1. First of all, I'm not even sure the Steelers are going to take a quarterback in round 1, but Dulac and McShay both said Shadur Sanders is a possibility. Dulac said Jackson Dart is a possibility. He said on the Rich Eisen show today that the Steelers have a first-round grade on Dart. That's kind of the first time that we've heard that. Then we heard Louis Riddick from ESPN say that the Steelers love Tyler Shuck and might trade down and take him at the end of the first round. And then Colin Cowherd says he has a source saying that he's 100% sure the Steelers will take Jalen Milroe at number 21. So that's 4 different quarterbacks, 4 different reporters saying that the Steelers are locked in on a certain quarterback. So somebody's lying, all right? It's officially lying season during the NFL draft calendar here, guys. So whenever you go on social media and you see all these different reports, really take it with a grain of salt because these teams are trying to jockey for position. They're trying to get teams to jump them. All these different things. They're playing these mind games, and the Steelers are damn good at it. They are the LeBron James of making people think they're going to take a quarterback that shouldn't go in round 1. In round 1, all right? So today we're going to be doing some Super Chat promotions as well. Of course, with Rodgers still not signed, we are going to still be giving away a Steelers jersey whenever he does make that decision. If he retires, we will go live on this channel. If he signs with the Steelers, we are going to go live on this channel as well. And when that happens, we're going to be giving away a Steelers jersey regardless. $20 to enter, so you guys can send in your Super Chat along with your question, or you can send in a Venmo, Cashapp, or PayPal for double the raffle tickets, all right? And the reason for that is YouTube takes a 30% cut of every single Super Chat you send in. But with Venmo, Cashapp, and PayPal, we get to keep more of the proceeds. So that's why you get that extra raffle ticket if you send in a $20 Venmo versus a $20 Super Chat. Then if we get to $200 today in total donations, okay, so $200, I know it's a lot, but if we get to $200 today, we will do a fan-led mock draft to finish out today's edition of Steelers Talk Live. All right, so if you guys want to do a fan-led mock today, $200 is the price tag. If we can get up there as a collective, then we will do a fan-led mock draft where you guys get to make the picks. I get to give you some options, but you guys can make the picks for every single pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the NFL draft this year. So if you guys want to get your donations in, if you want to get your questions on the show, if you want to help us get to $200 so we can do that fan-led mock draft, this is where you guys can send your donations at Jack Sperry on Venmo, # Captain Jack 19 on Cash App, or at Captain Jack Rabbit on PayPal. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. Now, before we get into our first segment here, make sure you guys get down there in the comment section, and I want to give some shout-outs here. So if you've liked the stream, spam those me's down there in the comment section. We got Real Rob Fishing. We got Jim Smitty. Titus Kitchens is here. Justin Watson is here. We've got Sebastian Sanchez. We got Patrick. We got Brock Walker, Justin Yankuski, Christian Andujar, my beautiful girlfriend Cassie Voth. We're actually going on a date night tonight, Jack Lotto, right? It's going to be a lot of fun. We got Kevin Reed. We got Steelers Dad, DJ KJ, Kermit is my God, Christopher Domingo, Robert Maxwell, DJ KJ, Mr. Deadhead, Shane Boone, Martin Klubender. We got we got DJ KJ. Got a good crew. Over 170 people already watching today's stream as you guys keep filing in here. We've only got 35 likes, though. We got to get that up to at least 50 likes before we get into our first segment here, guys. So let's get to the 50 likes, and then we can get into our first segment today, which is I'm going to be breaking down some of the personal life stuff that Aaron Rodgers is going through right now and why it is preventing him from signing a contract with any NFL team, all right? Not just the Pittsburgh Steelers. I even think if the Vikings were in this situation right now, he would not have signed with them, all right? Like, I really do think that this stuff that he's going through is really stunting the process for him, and, it's very serious stuff. So we're going to be breaking it down on our first segment today. We're 1 like away now, guys, 49 likes. We need 1 more like to get to 50 so we can get into this first segment of the day. Take a little drink there. There we go. We got to 52. Let's get into it right now here. Are we good to go, Jack? Are you good? Are you just setting something up? All right. Jack says we're working through a little bit of a technical issue. All right, cool. So we're going to get into our first segment right now here, guys. I think that there's a lot of people that just assume, Aaron Rodgers hasn't made his decision because he wants attention, or, he's just making excuses, or he doesn't want to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think that any of those reasons or explanations is actually what's going on. So I'm going to try and break it down for you guys so that you guys can get a little bit of a better picture of why I think Aaron Rodgers has not made his decision yet and why I do believe he will eventually sign on to be the next Steelers starting quarterback. So without further ado, let's get into it right now. Our first segment right here on the Steelers Talk Live Show. The narrative for Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers coming out of Rodgers' sit-down interview with Pat McAfee on the Pat McAfee Show on Thursday was Rodgers doesn't want to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers, or Rodgers wants to retire. Well, I'm kind of going against the grain here, guys, where I actually believe, and my takeaway from that interview was that Aaron Rodgers actually wants to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he likely will play for the Pittsburgh Steelers as their starting quarterback in 2025. And I think that interview actually gave us a lot more clarity than people are claiming in the media today. So stay tuned for why I believe Rodgers hasn't signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers and why I truly believe he will sign with this football team to be their starting quarterback in 2025. I put out a video yesterday breaking down my 8 takeaways from the interview, a bunch of quotes from Rodgers in that video, breaking down everything that he said and my takeaways from his quotes. So make sure you guys check out that video after today's show. If you haven't already, that's what the thumbnail looks like. And make sure you click that subscribe button to join the Steelers Talk family today. We have been the fastest growing Steelers YouTube channel anywhere on this platform for multiple years at this point, and that's because we give you guys free, in-depth Steelers coverage every single day. So if you guys want that daily Steelers news break every single day right here on YouTube, click that subscribe button to never miss a video. So first here, let's see what kind of the media response was to this interview, because I was a little bit surprised of the negativity that we got from a lot of people, especially from the people on ESPN. There's a trio of people on ESPN's Get Up that were just absolutely fed up with the whole situation this morning when breaking down this interview. Mike Greenberg, the host of Get Up, said, "Whatever the other plan is, it's better than this. This does not look like to me like a person who wants to invest absolutely everything into what we're about to do here in Pittsburgh." Dan Graziano, also from ESPN, said, "If I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, it gives me reservations. I would think about pulling back my offer." And then Mike Tannenbaum, the biggest clown show in the entire world here, says that did not sound like a person that was prepared to be a starting NFL quarterback and the rigors of a 17-game season, which is fine. It's over. If I'm the Steelers, it is over. We are moving on. And then even people outside of ESPN, people like Josina Anderson, posted this on her X today. "Steelers, find yourself another plan. Like, seriously, draft a quarterback, call the Falcons, call Tom Brady, whatever. Do something else." So I'm not going to read that entire thing there, guys, but there's a lot of people in the media that are very negative towards that interview that Rodgers had on the McAfee Show. And I just asked myself the question, did we even listen to the same conversation? They're saying things like, "Oh, Rodgers doesn't want to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He doesn't think the Steelers are a good opportunity." Well, let's take Rodgers at his own word here. This is the exact quote on the Steelers coaching staff that Rodgers said to McAfee yesterday. "Mike Tomlin's more than I even thought from afar as far as the type of person he is. I have a lot of respect for what he has accomplished in the league. Arthur Smith, love him. I mean, talk about a guy that doesn't need the work, but he is a grinder. We've had a friendship for a couple of years now, and I just like what he's all about." So glowing report for the Steelers coaching staff. Then when it came to his throwing session with DK Metcalf, he says, I wanted to see how I felt to throw with DK and how the juices felt and how the ball came out and just all those little things. And also just get to know DK. He's just a really respectful dude and an absolute specimen. Why would he want to get to know DK Metcalf and throw with him to see how it felt if he had no interest in playing for the Steelers, right? And then even McAfee himself, right after Rodgers left the show, he said, "It sounds like Rodgers, if he wants to play, it's going to be for the Pittsburgh Steelers." He even said during the interview with Rodgers, "Hey, man, you're talking really glowingly about the Pittsburgh Steelers here. Why not just sign with them?" And then he gave his explanation, and we'll get into that explanation here in just one moment. But I think it's pretty simple here, guys. The media hates Rodgers. And Rodgers hates the media, all right? Rodgers made his feelings on the media very well known in yesterday's interview. He's done it multiple times. He's told multiple reporters to, quote-unquote, lose his number. I mean, he's got very contentious relationships with a lot of people in the media, and of course, the media doesn't like that very much, all right? Because he is somebody that is very critical of that entire institution. And I think what people are missing when it comes to this interview, guys, is that I think people are getting so caught up in the fact that Rodgers didn't make an official announcement as to what he was going to do in 2025, that they completely ignored the other things that he was saying and the reasons why that he has not made an official decision in terms of his future heading into the 2025 season. So coming up here on Steelers Talk, I will explain why Aaron Rodgers hasn't signed. He cited personal issues, but what does that really mean? I'm going to be breaking it down here in just one moment. But first, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Game Time. And the NBA playoffs are getting started. And if you want to experience the energy and stakes of playoff basketball, you can get great seats at guaranteed low prices with our friends at Game Time today. Game Time makes getting tickets faster and easier, and you can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and even for hard-to-get playoff seats for the NBA playoffs. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA playoff tickets. The Cleveland Cavaliers have locked up the number one seed in the Eastern Conference this year heading into the postseason, and you can experience their playoff run in the weeks to come just over a 2-hour drive from Pittsburgh. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time today. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS. It's one word, all caps, CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS. It's one word, all caps, CHATSPORTS. It's right down there in the bottom right of your screen. That's CHATSPORTS, one word, all caps for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So here was Rodgers' explanation for why he hasn't decided, why he hasn't signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers as of yet. I have off-the-field stuff that requires my attention. I have personal commitments I've made, not knowing what my future was going to look like after last year, that are important to me. I have a couple of people in my inner circle who are really battling some difficult stuff. The stuff I'm dealing with off the field in my inner circle, that has to take my attention right now. I wasn't stringing anyone along. I wasn't holding anyone hostage. I was honest from the jump about where I was mentally and some of the constraints that I have in my life right now that warrant my attention. I don't mean any disrespect to any player on the Steelers, veteran or young guy that comes in. I'm just going through a lot in my personal life that has to take precedent at this point because that is a big commitment. When a commitment is made, it has to be an all-in type of commitment. I've been upfront with the Steelers about this and said, listen, if you need to move on, if you need to do something, by all means. Nothing but love and respect. If that's the decision, that needs to be made. But there's been no deadline, and I've talked to Mike T many times. So listen, man, I think that this is a perfectly reasonable explanation. Now, I think that the question that a lot of people have on their mind is, well, what kind of personal issues are we talking about here? Are we talking about, oh, I'm having a fight with my girlfriend, or are we talking about something a little bit more serious? And, I think that because it's Aaron Rodgers, people kind of just assume, oh, it's really not that serious or time-consuming or anything like that, something that would prevent you from making a commitment to a new football team. But did you know many people who are very close to Rodgers, who is from California, and is from kind of like, he's in that area, lost their entire livelihoods, including loved ones. Like they lost people that they loved in the California wildfires that happened very, very recently. And it's pretty darn sure here, guys, that what he's talking about, and even though he's not citing it specifically, it's pretty much a 100% certainty that he's helping people that are his friends and are his family members and loved ones in his life help rebuild their lives after losing their homes, after losing loved ones in the fires, all these different things. And this is actually what Rodgers said after the fires happened in California, after the season was over. Friends of mine have lost houses. A number of friends in the Palisades have lost their homes. A number of friends in Pasadena were affected. Friends around Runyon Canyon. It's been a tough time for sure. Then he said this specifically about the offseason right after the season was over. I told the Jets I'm going to take some time. So there you go. He's taking some time here. But this is a time when I'm taking time for my body and my mind to clear things. Obviously, it's different because all that's going on in LA. So what it sounds like, guys, is Rodgers is helping his friends rebuild their lives. And, I'm sure that especially the people that lost loved ones in these fires, they're dealing with a certain type of anguish and pain that, it's very, very difficult for them right now. And Rodgers feels like he owes it to them, and he made a commitment to them to help rebuild their lives and to really comfort them in their time of sorrow. And, I know that it's months after the fires, guys, but they're definitely still feeling those effects. So the work is still being done, obviously, because he has not squared those things away. But, I think that this is a perfectly understandable thing where if he made a commitment to his friends and the people that are closest to him to help rebuild their lives, he certainly has the financial means to help these people out and to help them emotionally through this really difficult time in their life, then, that's where his focus is at this point, and that is perfectly reasonable and understandable at this point. If you think that's not, then honestly, I think you need to check yourself a little bit, all right? Also, the other part of this is that Mike Tomlin is also getting updates from Rodgers pretty much every single week, most likely. He's talked about how he's had conversations with Mike Tomlin throughout this process, and Tomlin certainly seems like he knows what's going on, too, based on the things that he told the media at the NFL owners' meetings in Palm Beach just a couple of weeks ago. And it seems like he really knows what's going on. It seems like Rodgers has let him know what the situation is and how long it's going to take for him to make that decision. And it sounds like that decision, when he eventually comes to it, sounds like he does want to play, and it sounds like he does want to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, he was talking time and time and time again about how much he wants to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into 2025. And, well, he didn't say it directly, but he did say how Mike Tomlin exceeded his expectations, how he's good friends with Arthur Smith and he's a grinder. Talked about how DK Metcalf was a specimen. I mean, you don't say those things if you don't want to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2025, or at least you're not seriously considering it. And then there's also the fact that he hasn't straight up told the Steelers, hey, man, I don't want to play this year, or I'm going to retire, or I don't want to play for you guys specifically. All right, so the Steelers obviously feel good that Rodgers, based on his timeline and everything that he's told them about this entire situation, that he will eventually decide to play, and he will eventually decide to play for them. But also, if that doesn't happen, and he did say retirement is still on the table, it's still a possibility. In that scenario, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers would have no issue trading for either Kirk Cousins or Derek Carr, that is if Carr's made available, because those are two guys that are experienced veteran quarterbacks, and, especially, and I think both of these guys fit what the Steelers want to do offensively. So from the Steelers' perspective, they don't have to rush this, all right? If Rodgers decides to come on, great, but if not, and he decides to retire and he gives them a decision, then it's like, okay, we can shift our focus to trading for Kirk Cousins, which wouldn't be that expensive, and then same thing goes for Derek Carr, that is if he's made available via trade before the end of the offseason. So that's where the Steelers are at right now, or at least that's where I think that they're at right now. But where are you at? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. What is the percent chance that Aaron Rodgers is starting for the Pittsburgh Steelers in Week 1? Put it on a scale of 0, meaning no chance, to 100, meaning he's definitely going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback. Right now, I'd put it at around an 80-85% chance. It sounds like he wants to play. It sounds like he wants to play for the Steelers, and I think that's what's going to happen at the end of the day. So make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Really hope you found this video informative, guys. We're going to have more Steelers content coming your way as we continue our coverage in preparation for the start of the 2025 NFL Draft. So make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already for more content. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. All right, first segment in the books here. Coming up next, we've got my updated Steelers draft needs. It's been a while since I did a draft needs video for this channel, and, I just feel like with everything that's gone on now that we have a little bit more clarity on the Rodgers situation, I wanted to kind of break down my thoughts as to what the Steelers draft strategy is going to be heading into next Thursday's draft. But then if we get to $200 total today, in donations, we will have a fan-led mock draft at the end of the show. And we do have a $5 Cash App to start us off today. Just one so far. So there you go, Jack. And when you get a second here, Jack, I want to get your thoughts on what we just talked about, because this is something I was unaware of, and I kind of did some digging yesterday, and I found an AP article on Rodgers and what he's doing for his friends in the Palisades and all the places that were affected by the fires. And I saw the quote where he did say at the beginning of the offseason, I'm going to have to take some time to deal with this stuff. And, it kind of just makes sense when he put it into that context, but not a lot of people, this is not something that's well reported. And I think Rodgers wants it that way. I don't think Rodgers wants to project it out to the world like, oh, look at me helping all these people in California. Oh, look at me, with my charitable stuff. Like, he wants to keep it under wraps. He doesn't want to, let everybody know how good of a person he is, or whatever you guys want, however you want to phrase it. But, this is something that's really personal to him, and he made a commitment to help these people that he's very close with in his inner circle rebuild their lives. And honestly, that's admirable. You can say what you will about Aaron Rodgers, but he's pretty loyal to his friends, and he's donated a ton of money to donate to foundations that work with the fire relief funds and all that different stuff. So, I don't think Rodgers is like a saint or anything, but I do think, this is understandable and kind of admirable what he's doing for his friends.
Look, we can all have our opinions on him. Like, I think he's highly egotistical, and he's got the biggest ego on the history of the planet, but he's also a human being. He's got friends, he's got family, he's got loved ones, and if people were affected by the fires, which thousands and thousands of people were, it makes perfect sense that he's taken some time to help them. Again, you can think whatever you want about him, but he's a human at the end of the day.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
If he's got to do what he's got to do.
And by the way, it sounds like the Steelers are perfectly okay with that. And it sounds like Rodgers has given them some sort of assurance that he's most likely going to decide to play. And right now, Rodgers said it himself yesterday, the only option left to contemplate is the Steelers. He admitted that yesterday. He says he's not waiting for Minnesota. He's not waiting for San Francisco or anything like that. He knows that if he plays, it's going to be Pittsburgh. And, he doesn't want to make that commitment until this stuff is squared away because, like he said yesterday, Jack, this is a big commitment. He doesn't want to sign on the dotted line and then be in California for all these weeks and everyone's wondering, oh, well, where's Aaron Rodgers? Once again, Rodgers missing team activities. That's probably what he wants to avoid because he knows that he's going to have to spend time during probably, the phase 1 and phase 2 of the offseason program still, doing stuff to help people in California. And he doesn't want to have that narrative around him once again. So I don't know, man. To me, it's understandable. All right, I just think that this is something that's just not talked about at all in this discussion, and I think it definitely should be. $5 super chat from Justin Yankuski, my man. $5 getting us going. He does send a message too. He says, "Did I miss the Sperry versus chest hair boot off?" You didn't, Justin. Cully's been a little sick, but he is here today. So I know he's busy, but maybe we can get the. I'll send him a message and see if he's available to do the boot race today. I'll tell you what. If we get to $200 in donations today, we will make sure we get the boot race done today. I'll promise you guys that right now. All right, so $5 from Justin to get us going. That's $5 in the bucket. We need to get to 200 to have that fan-led mock draft at the end of today's live show. So without further ado, let's get into our next segment here. My updated list of Steelers 2025 draft targets are coming at you right now. With less than a week to go before the start of the 2025 NFL Draft, I'm going to be updating my Steelers 2025 draft needs list for you guys on today's edition of Steelers Talk. So listen, guys, like I said, we're less than a week away from the draft, and we're going to be having extensive coverage all throughout draft week. We're going to have a live show at the beginning of the week. We're going to have my final mock draft. We're going to have a bunch of rumors coverage as well, and then we have live coverage for every single pick of the 2025 NFL Draft, including every single pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're going to be putting out videos and grades videos for every single day and for every single pick. Like, this is a huge, huge week coming up here, guys. So make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already for extensive coverage of the newest slate of Pittsburgh Steelers that come in. All right, so my categories when it comes to kind of tiers of needs for an NFL team. All right, a tier 1 need for me is somebody where you need a day 1 starter. You need somebody to come in, be and fill a role on the team that requires them to play right away. Tier 2 need is something where you could upgrade the position, but you don't have to draft a player at that position necessarily. Then a tier 3 need is something where you need depth or you want to get a developmental player to eventually become a starter moving forward. So we can look at the tier 1 needs, the guys that I think you need to get an immediate contributor at, starting with running back. And the reason why running back is so important for the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into this offseason and heading into the NFL draft is because Arthur Smith wants this offense, and Mike Tomlin shares this belief, by the way. They want to be able to run the offense through the run game, all right? They want to be able to run the football when they want, where they want, down and distance, whatever, and they want to be able to run the ball at will, no matter what the defense is doing. If they put an extra safety in the box, whatever they do, they want to be able to run the football and run the football effectively on any down and distance. And, we saw last year that the Steelers definitely wanted to run the football at will, six most rushing attempts per game at 30.2, but the yards per attempt, 25th. EPA per rush, 24th. Success rate, 28th. Not very good numbers right there. A bottom 10 rush game at best, even though they were running the football at a top 6 clip. And obviously they let Najee Harris go in free agency, ends up signing with the Los Angeles Chargers. They do bring back Jaylen Warren. I'm actually very excited to see what J-Dub is going to be able to do in 2025 because over the last 3 seasons, he's actually been one of the most efficient running backs in all of football. Warren Sharp actually put out this really good tweet on Jaylen Warren earlier today. Or earlier this week, I should say. He said 1 of 3 running backs to average over 5 yards per touch in 3 straight seasons. He ranks out of 48 running backs with 300-plus carries since 2022. Number 2, an explosive run rate. Number 6 in yards after contact. Number 6 in yards per carry. And number 6 in success rate. So Jaylen Warren has been a really, really reliable and efficient running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers throughout his Steelers career to this point. But the Steelers do need to add another running back. It's not enough to just have Jaylen Warren. And they did pick up Kenneth Gainwell, who's currently slated to be this team's RB2. You still have Patterson and Ward and Champlin waiting in the wings there as kind of depth pieces, camp bodies. But you need to add another starting caliber player to this unit, in my opinion, to pair with Jaylen Warren. All right? And the Steelers have done extensive research on the running back group here during the NFL draft. DJ Giddens out of Kansas State. Omarion Hampton out of UNC could go in the first round. Same thing with Travion Henderson. All right, they've talked with a lot of different players. Caleb Johnson, Bashal Tootin, Jaden Blue, R.J. Harvey. All these guys getting top 30 visits, and then they had even more conversations with guys at the Combine. All right, so it's an unbelievable amount of interest in running backs, and they understand that this is a can't-miss position because the Steelers' offense wants to be run through the run game, and you got to have 2 really good running backs to be able to get that job done. So getting the right running back will absolutely be paramount for the Steelers this year. Another Tier 1 need, in my opinion, is you got to get some sort of defensive back, all right? Whether it's a slot defender or whether it's another safety, and you want to kind of base out of a 3-safety package kind of bandit kind of formation, you could do both. You just need to get somebody to fill the depth in this kind of secondary. Because you look at the cornerback room right now, Beanie Bishop Jr. made some big plays. He's got a nose for the football. Can get interceptions, all that different stuff. But he is a little bit of a liability in coverage. He's just so freaking small. And then you do have Joey Porter Jr. and Darius Slay on the outside. Brandon Echols, who they brought in free agency, can technically play in the slot, but you can certainly upgrade that position. Then you look at the safety room. You got Minkah Fitzpatrick and you got Deshaun Elliott, and you do have Juan Thornhill, but, Thornhill hasn't really played great over the last several years, and Minkah Fitzpatrick is getting older. Deshaun Elliott is in a contract year. You might want to get a safety here to potentially, be a rotational piece right away and maybe even be a starter down the road, all right? So you take a look at the slot corners and safeties and the interest that they have shown in guys during this draft class here. Guys like Jahdae Barron, who had a formal combine meeting, Nick Emmanwori, who has had a lot of interest from the Steelers this year, Xavier Watts, the Steelers brass went to Notre Dame for his pro day, Jacob Parrish out of Kansas State, really good slot defender, and then R.J. Mickens and Jalen Reed, kind of more mid-round type of safety prospects. But, I think that this is a position that, you just need to add a little bit more depth to the coffers, all right? Maybe it's not as desperate as some other needs that some other teams have and even the Steelers have right now, but it is something that I think the team is going to address at some point during the NFL draft. And then, of course, the other tier one need here, in my opinion, is defensive line, where you got to, once again, like when you're in your 4-down fronts, you got Cam Hayward and you've got Keanu Benson, but, you don't have a lot of big-time players outside of that in the rotation. And, with Cam Hayward about to retire in 2 years, you do want to have that contingency plan in place, so you need rotational depth and you need a future starter to eventually replace Cam Hayward, because you got Keanu Benson who got a lot of versatility. He can play at the nose tackle, he can play 3 technique, and you got Cam Hayward who can play 3 and 5 technique. And of course, when you're in your 4-down fronts, those are your 2 starters. And the Steelers are in this front 80% of the time. But 20% of the time, they're pretty much in a 5-man front. This is their base formation. They're a base 3-4 defense, which has a 5-man front. And, right now, Daniel Ekuale, who's more of just like a rotational piece, not even like a true starter, would be slated to be this team's 5 technique right now, with Benton still at nose and Cam Hayward still at 3 technique. So you could certainly get better at this position if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. And like running back, defensive tackle is a position that they have shown a ton of interest in here, with all these defensive tackles getting attention from the Pittsburgh Steelers here during the 2025 draft process. And a lot of these guys, if I'm being honest with you, are kind of mid-round guys, all right? Like, you got Derek Harmon, and Jamari Caldwell is not from Texas A&M, by the way. He is from Oregon. Sorry for the mix-up graphically there. But, there's a lot of good players on this list, and I do expect them to probably spend at least round 3, round 4 pick on a defensive tackle before, the draft is over. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comments section. What position should Pittsburgh prioritize in round 1? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section for today's pinned question. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Game Time. And while I'm talking about Game Time today, let me know what position you think Pittsburgh should prioritize in round 1. And with that, let's have word from our sponsor here at Game Time. And the NBA playoffs are just getting started. And if you want to experience the energy and stakes of playoff basketball this year, you can get great seats at guaranteed low prices with our friends at Game Time. Game Time makes getting tickets faster and easier to whatever live event you want to go see. And you can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and even for hard-to-get playoff tickets. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer you get to tip-off. And with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA playoff tickets. The Cleveland Cavaliers have locked up the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference this year, heading into the postseason. And you can experience their playoff run in the weeks to come with just over a 2-hour drive from Pittsburgh. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time today. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS. That's one word, all caps, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS. It's one word, all caps, CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off that first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So for the Tier 2 needs here, these are the positions where you could upgrade, but you don't really need to get a position in the draft. I don't think they are any for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think it's pretty cut and dry here. The positions you definitely need to get, and then the ones that you probably need more depth and developmental type of players to eventually rise up the ranks. So I've got 4 Tier 3 needs here, and we'll start with quarterback. And I think a lot of you guys at home are probably wondering why I didn't include quarterback in my Tier 1 list, because I think a lot of people are assuming, because Aaron Rodgers probably won't be on the team come the draft, that the Steelers need to take a quarterback in round 1, and they need to take one in preparation to start here in 2025. So I get why people kind of think that this is a Tier 1 level need, that you need to get a starter, pretty much to play right away because Rodgers isn't coming. But I really do think that Rodgers, or at least I think the Steelers think that Rodgers is in their pocket at this point. Rodgers is currently dealing with personal stuff and responsibilities that he committed to before the offseason even started, likely helping his friends out who lost their livelihoods in the California wildfires. And the Steelers and Rodgers have been in constant communication. And the result of those communications between Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers has led the Steelers to think he's going to sign with the team. So they obviously know more than we do. So I will trust the Pittsburgh Steelers' judgment on this. And I am going to go with kind of their thinking that Rodgers will be a Steeler in 2025. But even if Aaron Rodgers decides after the draft that he doesn't want to be the Pittsburgh Steelers starting quarterback, I don't see Kirk Cousins getting dealt during the draft because there's really no other teams that need to do that. And then Derek Carr is an ongoing situation that could develop later in the offseason as well. So if you don't get Rodgers, there's a possibility that Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr are both available for trade, and the Steelers can have their pick between the two, or maybe just one of them's available at that point. I do think the Steelers want an experienced veteran quarterback as their starter heading into 2025 because they're trying to win now. Obviously, their first plan is Aaron Rodgers, but I do think they'd be fine shifting to Cousins or Carr as their experienced veteran heading into 2025. So my thinking here for what the Steelers are going to do in the draft, because they have that win-now mindset, they want to go get that veteran quarterback because rookie quarterbacks and really young quarterbacks, they don't win playoff games, guys. And Art Rooney and Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan, they made it abundantly clear what their plan is. It's to get Cam Hayward a ring before he retires. So if you get a rookie quarterback and he starts this year, you're pretty much saying, sorry, Cam, we first and second year quarterbacks never win Super Bowls, so you're just going to retire without a Super Bowl ring on your finger. I don't think the Steelers want to do that. I think they want to at least give hope to Cam Hayward that he can win a Super Bowl before he retires. And I think that, that doesn't mean that they won't address quarterback in the draft, but I do think it'll be more as a developmental type of quarterback. And if you're looking at a developmental quarterback, I think you look at the guy with the highest upside. And I kind of think Jalen Milroe might be the top guy on their list, all right? Because he's 22 years old. He's got incredible physical ability, dynamic rushing ability, a phenomenal ability to throw the ball down the field. I kind of got a weird feeling here that the Steelers may try to trade down, and Milroe might be one of the guys that they would target with that trade down. Or maybe, who knows, maybe Colin Cowherd's right, and they just take him at number 21, and they plan to sit him for a year or two behind Aaron Rodgers. And I think that would be a phenomenal opportunity for a guy like Jalen Milroe. And, if I'm the Steelers and I'm looking for a developmental guy, this guy out of Bama might be the guy I'm looking at. So who's your guy? Let me know down there in the comments section. Which quarterback prospect do you want the Pittsburgh Steelers to draft this year? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Can't wait to see who you guys have as your top QB in this class. All right, now let's get to the other Tier 3 needs. A wide receiver. And this is kind of an interesting position as well because they've done a lot of work on early round wide receivers, like guys that are going to go in round 1, round 2, round 3. And I think the reason why they've done that research on these kind of wide receivers is in case they get a deal that's good enough to trade George Pickens. All right, and I do think that the Steelers would consider trading Pickens if it's for the right price. But the question is, do they get that price? I just don't see it happening, guys. I think that George Pickens is going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler in 2025, or at least he will escape draft weekend still on the roster. We'll see how his whole contract situation plays out later this offseason. But to be clear, I do think the Pittsburgh Steelers are open to a George Pickens trade. Now, I do think that they're going to have their price, and they're going to stick to it, all right? They're going to need another day 2 pick in exchange for him, all right? And if that happens, then, Matthew Golden and Jaden Higgins and all these different higher-end wide receivers that they've been talking to and doing research on during the draft process become a possibility in the earlier rounds. But I don't think Pittsburgh's going to find a team to bite on that. I don't think that there's any team in the National Football League right now that would send a day 2 pick to the Pittsburgh Steelers for George Pickens because of all the punctuality issues with him, the fighting issues, the effort issues on film. And then on top of that, you got to give him a brand new contract if you spend a high draft pick on him to go get him. So I think at most they get like a 4th or a 5th round pick, and I think that's too low to trade George Pickens for. Because personally, I'm excited to see DK Metcalf and George Pickens play together. I mean, we've seen George Pickens his entire career get, number 1 corners on him. Now, because you got Metcalf on the other side, he's going to get number 2 corners on him, and we know what George Pickens can do, not only in terms of his ability to make spectacular catches, but also after the catch. He's so underrated after the catch. I just think he's a special kind of talent, and hopefully in a wide receiver 2 role, that's going to, get the best out of George Pickens heading into the 2025 season, especially if Aaron Rodgers is throwing him the football. And in the end here, guys, I just think that because they're not going to be able to trade George Pickens, I still think that they would want to add to the room. I think that they could go wide receiver mid to late day 3, and like maybe it starts around round 5 is where it becomes possible where they could add some depth to this position. There's some pretty darn good day 3 wide receivers in this class, in my opinion. So there should be opportunities for Pittsburgh to improve this group in day 3 if they so choose. Another Tier 3 need is outside corner, and the reason why this is a Tier 3 need to me is because you got Darius Slay on the final year in his NFL journey. All right, so he's got 1 year left. He's going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler for 2025, and then the Steelers have to maybe start planning for the future at that position. Now, maybe Corey Trice Jr. is that future, all right, but he needs to prove that he can stay healthy. And Pittsburgh may want a developmental corner. If there's somebody that falls in round 4, round 5, somewhere around that area, somebody that with the physical skill set that they like, I think it's possible because, like we said, guys, Darius Slay, right now, he's going to be the CB2 heading into next year. But beyond that, 2026 and beyond, it's a big question mark because we just don't know what Corey Trice Jr. is going to become. Is it possible Corey becomes, the second corner in this defense alongside Joey Porter Jr. and we get the Avatar twins on the outside? Absolutely. But is it also possible Trice gets injured again? Absolutely. All right, so you're going to need probably to get another outside corner here to just see what you got. All right, see if you can, another dart throw on another toolsy type of outside corner, probably on day 3 to see if you hit. And then the final tier 3 need here is offensive line, namely interior offensive line. I think the Steelers actually really like Calvin Anderson as a swing tackle. They signed him to a 2-year deal because of that. And I think that they do believe in the unit that they have constructed here. I mean, they have spent a lot of resources building this group to their liking, and heading into this year, they feel like they finally had a plan, and now that plan's coming to fruition. All right, you got Broderick at left tackle, you've got Sayamalu at left guard, you got Zach Frazier at center, Mason McCormick at right guard, and Troy Fautano at right tackle, and that's a position that they have spent a lot of resources on. 2 first-round picks on the 2 tackles, second-round pick on Frazier, and then a mid-round pick on McCormick. And make no mistake, guys, McCormick had to make the switch over from left guard in college to right guard in the pros last year, and that's a difficult switch to make. So he's going to be training on the right side this entire offseason. That should mean that the very talented and physically imposing McCormick should be a better player for this offensive line next year. And if all these guys hit, if Fautano can stay healthy, if Broderick is more comfortable on the left side, that's going to be the group. So I just don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers are interested in taking a starting caliber player to start for them over any of these 5 offensive linemen. They like all of them, but they could use some depth, all right? Like they could get some more interior line depth, which might come like late day 3. I wouldn't get my hopes up too high for them taking offensive linemen in this draft, but I do think that there's a possibility they could take one sometime late day 3. So sound off for me down there in the comment section. What is your confidence level in the offensive line this year with Broderick, Sayamalu, Frazier, McCormick, and Fautano? Give me a 1 out of 10 rating there. 1 meaning not confident at all, to 10 meaning they're going to be the best offensive line in the National Football League next year. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. For me, I'd say I'm around 6.57. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Really do appreciate all of your guys' support. I will see you guys later, and until next time, here we go, Steelers. All right, 2 down, 1 to go here, Jack. My 7-round mock draft, my 8.0 version, is coming up here momentarily. And I'm excited. Because if you guys have been watching our live shows and you've been keeping up with all my mock drafts throughout the draft season, you know that I have not been repeating picks in any of my mocks. All right, so new players every single week for you guys to enjoy. And this is the last one in that series because next week I get to repeat players because it's my final mock draft. My final prediction for what the Steelers are going to do in the draft this year is next week. So this is the last one where I have my rule where I have to pick new players. So I do definitely have some new players here. I can't wait to talk about them here, guys. And if you guys want, we want to get a palooza going here and have a fan-led mock draft, you know what I'm going to do, Jack? I'm going to cut this in half, all right? If we can get to $100 today, because right now we're at what? We're at $10. We're $90 away. All right, I'm going to cut this in half. $100 total today. We will do the fan-led mock draft, okay? So if we can get $90 more, I know it's a lot, all right? So if we don't get there, we don't get there. But $200 seems to be a bit too high today, so I'll cut this in half. $100 today. We will do a fan-led mock draft, okay, guys? So if you want to get those super chats going, if you have a question or a comment you want to put on the show, feel free to send in those super chats. We greatly appreciate you guys. Speaking of super chats, we got a 5 here from my man Luke Askew. Says, I think that Aaron needs to retire and be himself for the first time ever. He is a greatest QB, but is his time to go. I think that Rodgers is the one to make that decision, you know? And it definitely seems like the Steelers don't want that. The Steelers want him to come play for them. And he's been their number one quarterback target since the beginning of free agency. It wasn't Justin Fields. It wasn't Russell Wilson. It wasn't Sam Darnold. Apparently they didn't give those guys competitive offers. And it sounds like they didn't even give Russell Wilson an offer, period. So Rodgers has been the one that they've been waiting on. He's been the one that they've wanted since day one of free agency. And, this might be your opinion, Luke, but I think the Steelers disagree with it, and I think Rodgers disagrees with it. I think that this is one of the reasons why Rodgers wants to come back is because people think that he's done, and people think that he sucks, and he doesn't want to go out the way that he did with the New York Jets last year. I think he wants a chance to do what Brett Favre did in Minnesota. I think he wants a chance to do what Tom Brady did in Tampa Bay. All right, I think that's what Rodgers wants. It's just he's got some things he's got to take care of, helping out his friends in California who lost their homes and lost loved ones in the fires. It's a serious situation, man. So, when people say, oh, he's taking so long, so selfish, so, attention whore, I just don't think that they're speaking with knowledge of the situation, So, whenever that situation gets cleared up, and it sounds like it could be soon, Tomlin certainly thinks he's going to sign with the team this year. We'll see what happens, but it's going to be an interesting situation for sure. All right, let's get into our final segment here, guys. My 7-round mock draft for the Pittsburgh Steelers, my 8.0 version. Brand new players for the last time during the draft season before my final mock draft drops next week. So without further ado, let's get into it. Today on Steelers Talk, I'm going to be sharing my 8.0 version of the 7-round Steelers mock draft right here on the channel. And, it's been quite a long journey here throughout the draft season. It's our 8th mock draft so far. I'm going to be putting one out next week, and that's going to be my final one. But we're less than a week away from the NFL draft here, man. It's flown by for sure, and I think that this has been a lot of fun to this point, guys. But let me tell you, once this draft week stuff gets going, it's going to get really, really good, really, really fast. So make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already for our extensive coverage of NFL Draft Week. We've got breakdowns of every single pick. We're going to be live for every pick on this channel as well. We're also going to be, doing grades videos at the end of it all. We're going to be doing UDFAs on the next day. A lot of great content is coming your way during Draft Week, guys. So click that subscribe button to never miss a single video. So as you guys know, if you've been watching this series throughout the NFL offseason this year, no repeat picks from previous mock drafts, all right? And the reason why I have that rule is because I want to put as many Steelers draft targets as I can in front of you. And I get to talk about more players that I like. I get to talk about more players that you should be aware of as Steelers fans, at least in my opinion. And it's more fun for you because I'm not talking about the same players week in and week out. So I'm starting to run out of players here because I've taken a lot of the players I really, really like. But I think I put together a pretty darn good list here. So hold on here, guys. We're about to make my first pick at number 21. And I'm getting a call from the Detroit Lions. And they want to move up to number 21 to take their preferred edge rusher to pair with Aiden Hutchinson at number 21. And they are offering us a trade down from 21 to 28, but we get the second round pick that they have at number 60, and we get their third round pick at 104, but we also have to include our third round pick this year at number 83. So this is something that I'm going to accept because it gets you that extra day 2 pick, and it puts you in the second round as well. So you're only moving down a few spots. I still think the Steelers can get the player that they want at number 28. And with that pick at number 28, I'm going to have the Steelers take Travion Henderson, running back out of Ohio State. Now, personally, this is not my preferred pick. All right, my preferred picks are, in mocks 1 through 7. But reason why I'm having Henderson go in the first round in this week's mock draft is because I don't want anyone to be surprised if it happens. All right, he's got the holy trinity here, guys, where, the Steelers brass was at his pro day, Tomlin and Khan, and then you also had the formal combine visit and the top 30 visit. So that's a lot of interest in Travion Henderson here, guys, and you can see my scouting report here. It's got world-class acceleration and long speed, which makes him a home run hitter. He's a really good pass protector. He's a plus receiving threat. and he's got great ball security. 0 fumbles last year at Ohio State. So a lot of really good stuff with his profile, and he's got incredible upside because of that. But the cons, he doesn't have very good vision, which gives me big-time pause putting him in an outside zone-heavy scheme like the Pittsburgh Steelers, because he's going to have to identify cutback lanes, something that Jaylen Warren does so well that Henderson just doesn't. And then the Ohio State Buckeyes, they brought in Quinshon Judkins last year to make their number 1 running back, and that makes me concerned. A player that explosive like Henderson pretty much got replaced and said, no, we can't put you as our number 1 running back. We have to go and get Quinshon Judkins, and we're going to make you our 3rd down back. Now, what I will say is that if you do draft Henderson in the 1st round, Warren's going to be your number 1 running back, and Henderson would probably be a really, really good 3rd down back for this team. It would allow the Steelers to have an explosive back on the field at all times, something that they couldn't say when they had Najee Harris in years past, and it could absolutely be dangerous. And by the way, Henderson, if he develops some vision, I think that he has got the potential to be one of the best running backs in the National Football League. It really is that high of a ceiling. I do think his floor is relatively high as well, because I think he's going to be a really, really good 3rd down back at the very, very least. And the running back position is super important for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they've done a lot of research in Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina and Travion Henderson out of Ohio State. All I'm telling you guys, I'm not saying for sure it's going to happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers take a running back in round 1 this year. So would you be happy with this trade down scenario and taking Travion Henderson in round 1? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comments section for today's pinned question. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by giving me a yes or a no down there in the comments section. So here in round 2, I'm going to go get an offensive weapon for this offense here in Savion Williams out of TCU. And, I think Williams is not a good route runner. I don't want to list him as a wide receiver because he's just not really a true wide receiver. He's got terrible route running footwork, and that would, obviously the Steelers would work with him on that, but he is so dynamic out in space. All right, you get the ball in his hands out in space, you use him as kind of a great kind of shift in motion type of guy on orbit motions and jet sweeps and all this different stuff. He is so good and so big and so dynamic with the ball in his hands. And honestly, I think that you can use him as kind of a bigger, short yardage and goal line running back as well, because you got Travion Henderson, you got Jaylen Warren as your 2 running backs. Those guys are relatively smaller. All right, you could use Savion Williams in wildcat formations as well. He was a high school quarterback. TCU's best part of the offense last year was when Savion was running a wildcat package for them. So, this is a guy where if Arthur Smith just wants to get creative, and we know how much Art likes to get these kind of bigger type of yak threats on crossing routes and on digs and get them out in open space. If you put him into this offense, I have some level of confidence here that Arthur Smith is going to be able to use him in the right way so that he can have success in the league. All right, so I would love to add this versatile offensive weapon to the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, add him to guys like George Pickens and DK Metcalf, 2 other big body type of wide receivers, and then also with guys like Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson, guys that are a bit smaller. So you got a great variety. You got a bunch of different skill sets in your wide receiver room. You can also use him as a running back, as a wildcat quarterback, do the Justin Fields stuff with Savion. I think that it opens up the playbook so much when you draft a player like this. And I haven't taken him in a mock draft yet, so I'll take him here in round 2. Then in round 3, with the pick that we got with the Detroit Lions at 104, I'm going to take Kyle McCord, quarterback out of Syracuse. I haven't taken Kyle in a mock draft for the Steelers so far this offseason, and Chat Sports actually got a report the other day that McCord believes that if he is there at number 83, that the Steelers are going to take him. Now, who knows? Like, maybe the Steelers have kind of led him on a little bit. Maybe McCord is kind of sunny, broadcasting kind of what he thinks is going to happen. I have an early day 3 grade on him. I would rather take him in round 4, but here in round 3, if you really want to get a quarterback, McCord is very intelligent. He's got a really good pre-snap processor, really good ball placement. He does get himself in trouble because he's so kind of confident in his pre-snap processor that he'll just throw the ball into harm's way when the defense shifts post-snap. I also don't love his throwing mechanics. But if you want to go, use a dart throw on a quarterback in the middle rounds here, I think that McCord is somebody that people compare to Brock Purdy because of his anticipation, because of his pre-snap processing. He just, on film, he looks like an NFL processor, and that's something that the Pittsburgh Steelers may be interested in. So I think that he's intriguing enough as a prospect where I would be okay with him here in late round 3 to take him. So coming up here on the Steelers Talk mock draft here, my 8.0 version, my day 3 picks for the black and gold, round 4 through 7 is coming up here momentarily. But before we get into that, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Game Time. The NBA playoffs are getting started. And if you want to experience the energy and the stakes of playoff basketball, you can get great seats at guaranteed low prices with our friends at Game Time today. Game Time makes getting tickets faster and easier, and you can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and even for hard-to-get playoff seats. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA playoff tickets. The Cleveland Cavaliers have locked up the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference this year heading into the playoffs, and you can experience their postseason run in the weeks to come just over a 2-hour drive from Pittsburgh. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time today. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So coming up here, round 4, I'm going to take Joshua Farmer, defensive tackle out of Florida State, and I think that this guy, Farmer, out of the Seminoles, really good run defender. All right, that's the thing that stands out to me. Really good run defending technique. I think that he does a good job penetrating and getting into the backfield. I think he's got quick feet, got long arms to be able to win leverage and all these different things. And, he's got a really good rip and swim move to get into the backfield when he's defending the run game. Now, the cons are, I think that he has a limited ceiling as a pass rusher. He's not really dynamic in that way. He's got a little bit of a bull rush to be able to push the pocket, but he's not going to be anything special in that regard. I don't love his lower body strength or his anchor ability, so I don't think he's a nose tackle. Don't think he's going to be able to take on double teams all that well, so he's more of almost like a 5 technique, a run defending 5 technique in my opinion. Kind of similar to Daniel Ekuale, if I'm being completely honest with you. But I think Farmer can rotate in on day 1. I think that he's a pro-ready prospect in terms of being a run-defending DT that can also push the pocket a little bit. I don't want to take him anywhere above round 4, but the Steelers really do seem to really like him, and they have shown a lot of interest in him. Top 30 visit, a formal combine meeting, the whole 9 yards there. So I do think Farmer is a name for Steelers fans to keep their eye on. Then round 5, I love this pick, Sebastian Castro, defensive back out of Iowa. And last year, the Philadelphia Eagles took a defensive back out of Iowa in the middle rounds there in round 2. His name was Cooper DeJean. He was the highest graded corner in all of football. Now, I'm not expecting that for Sebastian Castro, especially not in year 1 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But Castro was kind of being discussed in that light as a Cooper DeJean, Brian Branch type of player before they moved him to safety this past year at Iowa, where he still played pretty well, but he wasn't as good than where he was playing in the slot in years prior, at least not in my opinion on film this past year. I do think he's a little bit limited as an athlete, but I think that he can play in the slot. I think he's a really smart player. Iowa does a fantastic job coaching up their defensive backs. And I think if you wanted to use him as a third safety in a bandit formation, or if you want to use him in the slot as a kind of true nickel DB, I'm okay with either one of those things. And I think that he's got some good versatility. I think he's well coached, and I think that he can help this defense win and be the unit that they are capable of becoming in 2025. So here in round 6, I'm going to take Jimmy Horn Jr., wide receiver out of Colorado. Now, Horn is small, tiny, all right? But he is so fast from the slot. I think that he's going to be such a fun slot wide receiver. Now, you might be saying, but Jack, we got Calvin Austin III, and we've got Roman Wilson. Well, that's true, but, I think that you put Roman Wilson and Jimmy Horn Jr. in the Thunderdome, and you see who comes out on top. All right? I just think that, this is such a value because Horn, he does everything fast, all right? You guys will hear me say this about guys like Jaden Higgins as well, who's bigger, but, I love wide receivers like Puka Nacua, for example, that do everything fast. They don't slow down to do anything. They catch the ball at full speed, and they don't slow down in any part of the process of catching the football and converting into a runner, all right? I love that about Jimmy Horn Jr. There's a play where Shadur Sanders steps up in the pocket, he gets hit as he's throwing, and the ball is severely underthrown. Jimmy Horn Jr. on a post route is wide ass open, adjusts to the football, then he makes an insane cut to make a guy miss, and then he shows off incredible long speed to finish it with a touchdown. That's one of the most impressive reps that you're going to see from a wide receiver anywhere in this class. And because he's undersized, I do think that he is going to be somebody that goes probably on day 3 in this draft. And I think that he could end up being an absolute steal for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So as we saw last year, there wasn't enough depth at wide receiver for the Steelers. Getting a guy like Jimmy Horn Jr. will certainly help that out. Then round 7, I'm going to draft somebody that got a top 30 visit with the Steelers this year, currently expected to go in round 7, Justin Wally, cornerback out of Minnesota. Now, Wally, team captain there with the Golden Gophers, and PJ Fleck, row the boat. That's really, really important. High character guy. And I really like that this guy's just such a playmaker, man. 7 interceptions in his college career. He was a 4-year starter in St. Paul there in Minnesota. 3 forced fumbles and 27 breakups. He can play on the outside or the inside. He's probably going to be more of an inside player in the league. He does remind you a little bit of Beanie Bishop Jr. when he was coming out of West Virginia last year, only he's not as tiny. So he's still somebody that has a nose for the football. He's still somebody that makes big plays like Beanie tended to do in his rookie season for the Steelers. But if you're looking to get a Beanie type of player without the tiny size, that's a liability in coverage. Wally's an undersized corner, but he's got versatility. He's got experience playing in the slot as well. That's also a playmaker. And if you get him in round 7, guys, that is an incredible, incredible value. And, you might be saying, but Jack, you took, another defensive back type of player, nickel type player in Sebastian Castro. Why are you taking another one here in round 7? Well, the reason, guys, is because I think that the more depth you have in the secondary, the better. And we saw it last year with the Pittsburgh Steelers that they got injured in the secondary last year, and it absolutely killed this defense. Dante was hurt the entire season with a back issue. Joey Porter Jr. was dealing with stuff. Bunch of different injuries to this secondary. And I just want to avoid, with all my heart, with all due respect to James Pierre, that he's not starting football games for this team next year. So, getting 2 pretty darn good defensive backs, and, hopefully one of them will hit. That's kind of my thinking right here. Plus, you get some good depth. And I just think that at that position in particular, especially with the way it ended last year, that can only be a good thing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So my mock 8.0 for the black and gold: Travion Henderson in round 1, Savion Williams in round 2, Kyle McCord in round 3, Joshua Farmer in round 4, Sebastian Castro in round 5, Jimmy Horn Jr. in round 6, and Justin Wally in round 7. Grade the mock for me down there in the comments section, A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. And again, next week, I can start recycling some of these players, finally. All right, I've had to find new players every single week, all throughout the offseason. I hope I did a good job of that. But now, next week, here is my final Steelers mock draft before the draft gets going next Thursday. So if you want to check that out, I will have it out on the channel either Wednesday or Thursday, probably Wednesday. So make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. I greatly appreciate all of your guys' support. Click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until then, guys, here we go, Steelers. All right. We did get some cash apps here, so I will send them your way. Got a Venmo, too. All right. So we will get... Okay. Actually, it's just one cash app. One Vash app, one Venmo. And then I'll just send you the Venmo right now. So we'll get to these here, and if you got a question, don't be afraid to get a question into the chat here. We'll stay live as long as the questions keep coming. So we will get there here in just one second. DJ KJ coming in with a $10 cash app here, where he says, can you go live May 28th for my birthday? I can't remember. Was that a Monday, Thursday? Because that's usually when we go live, DJ KJ, but May 28th. That's a Wednesday. So maybe we can make some, arrangements there, DJ KJ. No promises. Or Cassie says it's a Monday. May 28th. Jack says it. Jack says it's a Wednesday, so conflicting reports here. It does say Wednesday on the phone. Oh, so Cassie said she was wrong. Okay, so it is a Wednesday. We'll see what we can do there, DJ KJ. You've been a loyal supporter, so maybe we'll make some accommodations for you. Then we got Jason coming in with a $20 Venmo. So put Jason in on the raffle when we're going to be giving away a Steelers jersey when Rodgers makes his decision. So appreciate you, my man. He says he wants the mock draft. So we're still, 36, 37? We're not there yet. We're going to have to need like a $70 super chat here for that to happen here. But we got a $2 super chat here from I am Pooh 98, $2. Says, what's your Texas Roadhouse order? Love you guys. So Cassie and I are going to Texas Roadhouse tonight. Cassie's order is the rolls. Cassie's order is to get. I eat them too. They're amazing. And like Texas Roadhouse is the ultimate place where like you go there, you can't help yourself with the buns. Pause, and then like you get your salad or whatever comes out before the meal, and then by the time that you have your buns and you have your salad. So after you eat the buns and after you toss the salad, then the steak shows up and like you don't even want to eat it anymore. I don't know, man. I love Texas Roadhouse though, man. You never leave hungry is the thing about Texas Roadhouse there, Jack. All right, that'll be it for today's show. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for everybody and all of your support. We talked about a lot of different stuff today. Of course, next week it's going to get even crazier. So if you haven't already, click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. No, it's just Cassie's text. Here we go, Steelers.